Hello and welcome to the Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board's Black Future Speaker Series. My name is Heather Fernandez and I attend St. Francis Xavier Secondary School. I am joined here today with Alejandro Garcia Polo from St. Thomas Aquinas Secondary School. We will be your moderators for this session. The Black Future Speaker Series is an opportunity for secondary students to learn, celebrate, and embrace the past, present, and future contributions of Black communities in Canada. Through discussions, this speaker series serves to engage, inform, and empower all participants. Students will have an opportunity to hear from some of the GTA's relevant educators, thinkers, and cultural figures who contribute to the vibrancy of the Black community in Canada. The speakers will share their personal stories and insights on the realities of anti-Black racism, Black identity and in its intersections, education, politics, mental health and well-being, constructs of beauty, social justice and activism, Black Canadian history, and other timely topics. By learning about and celebrating the contributions of Black Canadians, we hope to inspire students and staff to continue to nurture hope and actively promote social justice. Today, we are in conversation with Khamica Bingham and Cassandra Pascale.
Khamica Bingham is a professional sprinter 2016 Olympian and two-time Pan Am Games medalist who understands the power of resiliency and overcoming challenges and barriers. Cassandra Pascale was an elite-level sprinter competing in the NCAA CIS and represented Canada as a junior. She now is a GTA-based people analytics professional with a passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Cassandra and Khamica combined their passions to kickstart their brand, Meet My Melanin, to help those feel seen, heard, and known in all places. Please join me in welcoming Khamica Bingham and Cassandra to the Black Future Speaker Series. Thank you for being here today with us.
Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here.
Good. So we wanted to get introductory questions to understand who you are and what you do. So first of all, congratulations on the recent launch of Meet My Melanin. Could you share with us what the Meet My Melanin organization is and what inspired you to create this?
So I'll take this one. So Meet My Melanin is something that really started up kind of last June when we were at kind of the height of the Black Lives Matter movement. And Khamica and I, we regularly connect and we talk through just like social issues, what we're feeling, what we're experiencing. And I think we both are experiencing just a level of almost like loneliness and not feeling like we had a space to share our stories or share our experiences or connect with other people that were maybe feeling similar as we were. So we decided like, hey, if it's not there, like build it, right? So we connected and we started to build a brand that really is focused on amplifying Black voices, trying to bring together our personal stories to not only just share our stories, but also try and find healing amongst shared experiences. So that was kind of the impetus for the birth of Meet My Melanin.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much, Miss Cassandra. Now, in terms to what is your hope for Meet My Melanin in the next 5 to 10 years, and how will you like to see the organization grow?
Ultimately, one of our main things is pretty similar to like our slogan. We want, people of color, we want the people that are in disadvantaged communities to just feel seen, heard, and known. And if we can spread this message and, as Cassandra said, create a space where we can inspire and we can share our experiences and heal with each other, I think there is this amazing connection and unity that we can help to our communities. And ultimately, we can just speak to many people if we can share our messages. And ultimately, if we have other people, other Black professionals, entrepreneurs, people that, are successful in all areas, if we can have them underneath us, under Meet My Melanin, sharing their stories and having those conversations is ultimately what we want.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It definitely sounds amazing. So we have heard that Cassandra is a Dufferin Peel alumni and that both of you grew up in the Peel region and have had local and international success. We also know that you're both elite and professional athletes. Could you both share a little bit about growing up in the region of Peel, your careers as athletes, and what you are currently doing today?
So I'll start since I'm from Dufferin Peel. I went to St. Marcellinus, Marcy's, you know. Um, I had I enjoyed growing up in Peel. Peel is a very multicultural area. Um, and I enjoyed my high school experience a lot there. For me, I got into track and field actually from high school. Um, they kind of, I was kind of able to get pushed in the direction of joining the track team and building out my career from high school. I wasn't in anything outside of high school prior to that. So it really was a launching pad for me to start my career as an athlete and get scholarships, had to get the opportunity to represent Canada and pay for my education. So that was really awesome that I was able to use my high school experience as a launching board for that. Now I'm a retired athlete. People laugh usually when I say that, but I'm a retired athlete. I now work in people analytics. So I love people. I love to talk. I've been talking as soon as I could get my words out. So I study how people in organizations, how they operate. I study their functions. I study how can we make people happier at work and, we improve productivity. So I've kind of been able to translate my athletic world into now a professional sense. And I work with people and I study people for a living.
That's so cool.
Well, that is very good, and I'm sure that that foundation is what actually is driving your Meet My Melanin to be what it's going to be and what will reach. Now, Meet My Melanin is addressing anti-Black racism on a large social scale. However, looking at your careers as Black and female athletes, have you faced any challenges in your career due to anti-Black racism? How do you resist and challenge racism and oppression? And how can the sports industry begin to dismantle the potential barriers?
So I think I can share a little bit about this. So this year with the Black Lives Matter movement, I was opening up with some of the experiences that I've had. So track and field, it's kind of one of those sports where it's predominantly Black. So I know a lot of people can think, well, how can you experience, any form of racism, when there's so much Black athletes in track and field? And for me, I think it's not similar to white dominated sports like hockey. I think it's more about microaggressions and when you're trying to elevate and create opportunities to market yourself so that you can get, sponsorships and support from other companies to be able to support your dream, because that's ultimately outside of track, that's how you can make money. So I was approached by a magazine, a very common running magazine in the community, and the campaign was Fastest Woman in Canada. That was the campaign. In 2015, I was the fastest woman in Canada. So when they approached me, I'm like, yes, this is a great opportunity to be able to, just help young Black men and women just to see that it's possible, so they can see the representation, they can see someone that looks like them on magazine covers and things like that. So I was ultimately rejected, and they told me that I didn't fit the look for what they were going for. And ultimately, I think it affects you, the rejection, it hurts, obviously. And for me, I think the biggest thing that I learned from that was not letting, rejection or what people say about you get on the inside of you and change how you see yourself. I think that is the biggest thing, because it starts from yourself. And if you see the value within yourself, you'll be able to carry that and move forward. And eventually you'll be in spaces where you will be valued. In terms of a sports industry place, being an Olympic athlete, we know that Olympics happens every 4 years. We're not like the NFL or the NBA where, you have a series every year and there's constant games, and they can have shirts that say Black Lives Matter, and they can have things that say Breonna Taylor and now speak on these things, advertising them. But unfortunately, the Olympics, they have this rule called the Rule 50. And so pretty much what their goal is to silence athletes. And we've seen, a cultural phenomenon that happened in 1968 with Tommy Smith and John Carlos when they, raised the fist on the podium. That was a one-time opportunity to really show the world like, hey, there is some things going on in our country. You know, we're not happy about it. And it's easy for, you know, the United States to be like, yay, they're heroes. They won a bronze and they won a gold medal for us. But the moment that they used psychological propaganda to just speak their message and just say, hey, no, like this is not okay. This is what's going on. It becomes a problem. They were quoted and said, you know, the US wrote an apology letter to the International Olympic Committee and said, it makes our country look like the devil. So something that we remember as this cultural phenomenon and something that, you know, what symbolizes the Black fist, and what most people don't even know is that they wore a black sock for poverty. They wore a black scarf for like Blackness. And I think if sports continues to make changes on a basic level, like changing the names of sports, but ultimately allowing athletes like myself on these big platforms to be able to showcase and protest and say, this is what we stand up for, this is what we this is what we want changing, and remembering that I'm not just an athlete, I'm human. So I don't think that people, when they say leave politics out of sports, is the thing to do.
I couldn't agree more, and thank you for sharing that thoughtful story. And it's your story, which we're sharing with everybody that's going to read this, because it's important to share this type of things. It's valuable.
Actually, forgot to ask you the same question we asked Cassandra about what you are doing now and like where you are after after you've been in the region of Peel.
No worries. Yeah, so I went to Heart Lake, and that was like our logo. Like our thing was like Heart Lake, you know. um, so yeah, like so I went to Heart Lake. When I was in grade 9, I was actually a gymnast, and then when I was in grade 10, I made the switch to track and field. So I kind of started on the club level first. Like that was my little introduction. But yeah, I was able to compete in OFSA, which was something that I didn't expect to do because, you know, there is no high school championships for gymnastics. So that was new for me. You know, I was a 6-time OFSA champion, and being able to kind of help Heart Lake and you know, put them on the scene in that way was really, really fun. And I knew from high school, like I just loved track and field so much. I knew that I wanted to continue it post college and, you know, hopefully try to make it like a career. So that is currently what I'm doing now. I'm a professional and Olympic athlete, so I'm still training, still running. And hopefully, you know, if the 2021 Olympics happens this year, that is definitely what I'm training and gearing up for. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's so impressive. Congratulations on all your accomplishments. Cassandra, do you mind answering the question, how do you resist and challenge racism and oppression, and how can the sports industry begin to dismantle potential barriers?
Thank you. I would say for myself, I've always been like an outspoken individual. And I think I like to challenge the status quo. I'll ask why a lot. And I think that's a great way to like continue to challenge like what's going on. Like you don't have to have the answers, but asking why is just the start. For myself, I probably had my personal experience with like anti-Black racism was like I was a child. I played like competitive soccer, and a group of parents started calling me the Black Rhino, and they had a soccer blog and they referred to me as the Black Rhino because like I was aggressive. I played hard, I tackled hard, and like that's what you're supposed to do. So I kind of experienced that from adults towards a child from a young age, and you know, you feel that otherness. And I'm fortunate to have parents that are active and that were involved and saw what was happening and made sure it stopped. But I think that's something that sat with me for a long time, that adults, you know, regardless if you're a child or an adult, they're going to judge you and say things about you negatively. So I think as I, you know, progressed through the sports world, I almost had, I wouldn't say an expectation, but the knowledge that people were going to judge me based upon the color of my skin and not based upon the successes I had in my athletic career. And like similar to Khamica, like we did both of us did well. We were one-on-one competitors throughout high school, when it came to like our 100, 200s as we kind of went up the ranks. And that's a little chip on your shoulder, like you're doing well, but there is that kind of like gap you leave for yourself that is like, expect this so you're not disappointed by it, which is something I hope to change for a lot of people. That I don't think you should expect people to judge you based upon the color of your skin. You shouldn't have to expect it in order to protect yourself. Additionally, with the sports world today, a very basic thing we can do is like change names of teams. Like, I'm happy the Redskins changed their name, the Chiefs, the Indians. Like, very basic level things can be done to go against racism, not just anti-Black racism. Like, there's some blatant things right in front of us that we see, and people spend billions of dollars a year buying things with logos that are people that are telling us this hurts us. And we're like, no, this doesn't really hurt you. What we're going to do for you instead is we're going to paint Black Lives Matter on the street and tell you, but we're going to keep these things in place because that's not what's really hurting you. And I think if we change the narrative and we start to actually listen to what people are telling us, when you do this, it hurts me. When you do this is how it impacts me, instead of dictating to them, we're actually going to do this because we think this is your problem. I think if we kind of take that step back within the sports world and hear the pain and the anguish that people are telling us they're experiencing, and I think that's what athletes have been saying. Like when we saw with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor in the summer, athletes were saying, I am in pain. I don't know if I can do my job as an athlete. I need support. I need help. And I think the NBA is really the first place we saw some of that responsiveness. The team started to provide support and allow them an outlet to share what they were saying their problem is, what they needed changed for. I think if we can continue to put that kind of pressure on and allow for people to say, this is where I'm hurting, and share that. And that's going to be a part of your job. If you have things happening in your personal life, it's going to impact your job. It's going to impact your school. And we recognize that people are people first and not entertainers. I think that's when the progress starts to be built, particularly in the sports world.
Thank you so much for sharing.
That segues into in 2013, three Black organizers, Alisa Garza, Patrice Collars, and Opal Tumeri, created a Black Center political will and movement building project called Black Lives Matter. The term and hashtag, according to the founders, has become an affirmation for Black peoples and ideological and political intervention in a world where Black lives are systematically and intentionally targeted and oppressed. What does the Black Lives Matter movement mean to you?
So for me, like the Black Lives Matter movement, I like first remember hearing about it is after like Trayvon Martin was killed and I was away at school. And that was the first time for me that I had heard like a collective name or voice tied to the impact of the death and loss of Black lives in that way, particularly, either police or civilian targeted killings of Black people. It was almost like a hopeful point because it was all the things I'd been feeling and thinking that it was finally being said outwardly. And it was just also very emotional to hear about like all the baggage that people have been carrying around and all the stuff that I didn't know about. Like in my mind, entering university, I was obviously very naive. And that was really the first time I'd heard of the killing of an unarmed Black teen. And maybe the sheltered life that I lived, I didn't really know about what was the comings and goings, but that was the first time that opened up my eyes to just how far things could go and how far things had gone. And it caused a lot of fear because, you may hear you'll get arrested or this will happen or that, but that actually showed that due to the ingrained racism in people, you can lose your life. So it was really just kind of like put together everything in one place and gave a platform for this is what we're fighting for. It kind of gave a direction to all of the feelings that were intermingled when those things happened.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cassandra. What about you, Ms. Hammond?
I completely agree with Cassandra. And I think for me, as the Black Lives Matter movement was really sprung into the media and all over our social medias, and everyone was locked down in a pandemic, and I think just being also in the United States. So currently I'm training in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and that is the South. It is really the South, and if you're going to see anything, you're going to see things in Louisiana. For me, the Black Lives Matter movement was very empowering. I was just really happy because I think there was a lot of us that we had feelings, and I think the Black Lives Matter movement just gave a place of belonging for so many people, and for us to unite, and not even just for the people that are hurting, that there was people that were, the sense of allyship, that were people that were, on the outside of it, that were saying, no, this isn't right. Like, no, this isn't right. No, we need to come together. And I think having that unity and just really seeing how a group of voices coming together and seeing globally protests happening. And for me personally, to participate in a peaceful protest, I never felt so interconnected with what was going on and empowered, and felt like my voice really did matter, that things that we can say collectively can really make a difference. And when we started to see some changes on an institutional level, or just having companies starting to have these conversations and implementing policies, or just starting to have conversations with their employers, or their fellow people of color, just saying, hey, how do you feel? How can we help you? I think it was a very powerful unit to be a part of.
We know that there's a lot of discussion regarding how to be anti-racist. Words like stay woke, allyship, and co-conspirator have all been used to describe those who are actively working to challenge racism. For those students and teachers listening to this session today who don't identify as Black, what advice do you have to them regarding dismantling anti-Black racism?
I would say my first thing is read, read, read. There are a lot of good resources and a lot of good ways to educate ourselves. I think it's really great that a lot of people wanted to join, for instance, like the Black Lives Matter movement. But I think it's the why these things matter, and the why behind it. I think I want for everyone just to know the origin and how we got here, because when you know where you've come from, you know how to go back and correct that. And I think we need a lot of corrective action in order to make progress. And if we educate ourselves on the steps that got us here, then we can correct those things. So the first thing I would definitely say, education. There's a lot of good books, a lot of good resources available, and that have been highlighted continually, I would say, over the past 6 to 8 months. And then also listen to the people around you, listen to those people that are experiencing that, listen to understand and not to respond. Because I think there's just a distinct difference when you listen to understand someone and you're taking in, because when you take the time, you're listening to respond, you're there trying to figure out what you're going to say, and you're not taking in everything that they're saying. So I think those are the two critical things I think of allyship is, in order to understand and support, you got to listen. And in order to support and be an active ally, you've got to also educate yourselves on where we're coming from.
Yes. It's to be a student, to still keep learning, not outside of school, but to learn about the things that affect our society. Also, in regards to our theme, to nurturing hope as well, our speaker series starts in the month of February. However, this year we're encouraging teachers and students to think about Black history beyond the month of February as a way to create a more inclusive curriculum that includes the voices, experiences, and history of Black people, as well as the Black Canadian experience. What does Black History Month mean to both of you?
So for me, Black History Month is every month.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a household that I learned about accomplishments of Black people from Monday through to Sunday, January through to December. And Canadian history is Black history. Black history is Canadian history. And I think it's critical that there are definitely some places where those have been removed. Like, and we need to reinsert them back into it. And I think with that, it shows the intertwinedness of the relationships. It's not just on Black History Month, like, hey, these are all these cool Black people and the things they did. I think if we learn it as a part of the history and the contributions, it helps to build the story a lot easier. And that builds the story from when we're in grade one, and doesn't start to build the story when we're in high school, you know? For me also, I think a critical part of Black history is understanding Black history does not start at slavery. I think we oftentimes, our first introduction to Black characters or Black people in a school sense that you're learning about it is at the slavery point. And I think it's critical for us to start before there. And we need to teach kids that, you know, where did we start? And how did we get to that point to become enslaved people? And I think, you know, appropriate terminology, the kidnapping, like that's what happened. And I think if we teach it for what it is, it just gives a better rounder understanding. Then also for Black students, I'm sure it's like, I know for myself, it was difficult. Like the first time you're learning about somebody that looks like you're in chains. So I think if we can leverage this all year round version of, you know, Black history is Canadian history, then we got to start earlier to give the run up to before they became Canadians, before they came to Canada. And I think for me, that's what Black history means to me. It means it's that full picture, that full viewpoint, and not just starting at a convenient point in history.
Yes. What about you, Miss Carmen? Khamica. Sorry, pardon.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree with Cassandra. I think the starting point, the starting point is really crucial, and I think starting in a place where, you know, and I read something today that just said not to say, you know, slaves, but to say an enslaved people, because I think just the difference in wording just changes like impact. You know, I think there's a very traumatic factor of just calling people and thinking slavery as making somebody's identity versus something that happened to them. And I also, you know, agree with Cassandra in the sense where I wish that Black History Month wasn't just condensed into 1 month. I think there's so much Black contribution, so much things that we can be learning. As she said, you know, Black history is Canadian history. It is history. And I think that is something that should be implemented all around, because, you know, in schools, you're in school from Monday to Friday. You know, that's 20 days for the entire month. And you cannot fit all of that history and you know, include everybody in that, in those contributions in that 1 month.
Our theme for this year's Black Future Speaker Series is entitled Nurturing Hope. It comes from our Catholic Education Week theme. When you look at the current political and social climate surrounding the pandemic or addressing anti-Black racism, what does hope mean to you, and how do we nurture hope?
To me, hope is like continuing to keep your eyes open for the light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes hope is there, but your eyes are closed. So, you know, we got to open our eyes and look for what's in front of us as well. I think that there's hope to be seen all over. You know, you have, whether it be like your family, like that's a point that you can look for hope in. I think your friends, your community. I think in order to nurture hope, it's also to like nurture opportunity. So to provide opportunities for people to have outlets and people to share and share their experiences or what their difficulties that they're going through. I think, you know, you have to kind of get over to get to where you want to go a lot of times. So if we just continue to provide spaces and resources for people to just like air out. I know the pandemic's been really hard for a lot of people. And a lot of times, like, I'm like really struggling. And when I can have conversations with people and like, I just feel like this weight off of my shoulder. And I'm like, okay, like I can get through this. So I think that there are a lot of ways, not only just through, I think conversation is really what we have because you don't have the physical presence of people. So I think it's just continuing to nurture conversations in different ways. Like sometimes I don't want to Zoom, so I'll call you on the phone. Like I think it's just finding those different methods to nurture that hope and just be there for each other is really what we can do.
I think coming together and trying to make progress towards a common goal. Like that is, I think that's everything that everybody is hopeful towards. We have this common goal, and taking progression, like taking those progressive steps is crucial in keeping the hope alive. And honestly, like, if I'm going to be really honest, I think like this is a sign of hope. Like things like this that we are, we have a Black Future Speaker Series, and we are having organizations that are implementing things for Black people and anti-Black racism, and we're talking about it more, and we're understanding like, yes, we have so much emotions tied to this. We still have a lot of healing, and I think just understanding like we still have a lot more to go, but there is something in terms of movement of, okay, let's get going. I think that helps us to have some hope, and just as Cassandra said, continue with the conversations, because I think there is so much healing and understanding, and just sharing your stories and saying, wow, yeah, like I felt like that too, and I didn't know what to do. And I think just not having it kept to ourselves, but talking about it, I think there is a great sense of community and healing, and that's really how we're going to be able to get to that common goal.
And that's what we hope. We hope to nurture that hope to every single student. And also in relation to the students, what advice do you have for those young students who want to make a difference in the world, such as you are doing, and make a better world for themselves and others?
I would say first, like, if you can't find it, build it. If it doesn't exist, make it. Like, like, I think a lot of things we're oftentimes looking for other people to do it or have it existed already. There's nothing wrong with taking that initiative and just going with it. I think like you don't have to know where it's gonna go, but just start. And I would just say also just tap into those around you, tap into what resources you have, and just take good care of yourself throughout all of it. Like I think it's really, I think, a miss on a lot of people that you're trying to build progress, but like you have to take care of yourself in doing that, because it is a lot of like heavy work, and it can become like super taxing. And then lastly, I would just say like find a cause, find something you're passionate about, find something that like what makes you want to wake up every morning and think about it and talk about it, and just follow suit with it.
Yeah, I think it starts with you. I think it starts inside. You can't pass light if you don't have light inside of you. And I think making sure, you are okay, and making sure that, as Cassandra said, you take care of yourself. And I think as you prioritize being a better person yourself, then you're able to pour that onto others. And, that's prioritizing self-care, that's, learning and adding knowledge all the time. And I think just it starts within, and it starts with self-confidence and building yourself up. And once you do that, then I think you can, it's as Angela, they commonly say, people, it's not really about what you say, it's about how you make someone else feel. And I think if you really focus on yourself, then you're adding and being able to help other people to feel good. And that is where we're going to start to make a difference.
We will start there. Thank you very much, both of you.
What? So on that note, imagine you were transported back to high school. So who were Khamica and Cassandra in high school? And what's one piece of advice that you would give yourself? Or what's one thing you wish you knew then that you didn't, what's one thing you wish you knew now that you didn't know then?
I think, so I just try to think back to 14, 15, little Khamica. And I think academically and athletically, I was in a really good space and I felt confident in those areas. But I think, personally, emotionally, socially, I felt like Khamica struggled a lot in terms of, insecurities of her skin complexion. And I really felt the pressures of wanting to conform to something that wasn't me. And I was afraid to be my authentic self because, I was afraid of what my peers were saying when it came to talking about dark-skinned women, or being told like, yeah, you're pretty for a dark-skinned girl. And I think there was a lot of things that I was afraid of and that I wanted to run away from. So I put chemical products in my hair to make it, try to resemble what I thought was beautiful. And I wish I really appreciated and loved my authentic self. And I wish that I loved just my God-given gifts, like my natural hair. It took me until I was 23 to just really love and appreciate my natural hair and my skin complexion, and to be on that discovery of, self-love. And I wish that, I had someone to talk to about it. And I wish that I had, seen that back then.
Thank you so much for sharing. Cassandra, is there anything you'd like to add?
For myself, I would think just live in love, like move and talk and treat people with love first, regardless of maybe how they may meet you and the energy they may meet you with. You don't know what people are going through. And I think you're only in control. You're in control of yourself. You're the only person that you're in control of. So not being reactive and knowing and staying stable in your core of who you are, and always letting that lead you and navigate through scenarios and situations. So I think you're always going to have people around you that have good energy and sometimes not so good energy. And you can't allow that energy to dictate who you're going to be today. So just continuing to be your own North Star, knowing who you are, being comfortable in who you are, and letting that lead and guide you.
And well, thank you very much, Miss Cassandra. And continuing with our theme of nurturing hope, sometimes there's people or things in our life that shape who we are. So we're stating before, Miss Cassandra. So is there anyone or anything that has inspired you the most in the work that you do? Is there anyone who has been your greatest inspiration and gives you that hope?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think, I've had a lot of like really, really great figures throughout my life. I would say like my family is a constant support system for myself. I had like really, really great teachers, throughout high school, that really championed for me and pushed me and nurtured me when I need to be nurtured, pushed me when I need to be pushed, and really gave me the opportunity to excel and be my best self in both athletics and in school. So that was like huge in my journey. Like my teachers made a huge difference. And I think the experience that I had, because they were champions for me. And outside of my teachers, like my family is that constant, like they're go-getters. I have like my grandma and my great-grandmother is still alive. And, my great-grandmother doesn't have any formal education, and she's the smartest person I know. And so, I look at her and she's in her late 80s, and she gets up, she does her walk, she does her exercise. And regardless of what's going on around her, her constant thing that she always says is like, God is in control. Why am I going to worry? Why am I going to stress? Because God is in control. So for me, that is the most hope and the most trust and the most faith I ever see in a person that's gone through so many difficult things in their life. Like they're not worried because they're just like, God is in control. So, I hope that I can have my faith on that level, that I can just like sit back and just say, God is in control. Like God's got me. I don't have anything to worry about. So, that is what I would like to nurture in myself and the people around me, to, sit back and God already has the controls, but, let him do his thing. So.
Yeah, definitely family is a crucial in terms of support for me. But just kind of like a different aspect of it. I have a therapist, and his name is Jeremy Blunt. And, he's a Black therapist. And I think, he's just really helped to nurture hope for me from like a mental health side. I think there's been a lot of conversation, and we're talking about healing. And I think just actually acting out that healing and knowing that sometimes, I can't pour into my friends if I have nothing inside of me, if I'm kind of wearing on empty. And I think just talking to somebody, talking to an adult, talking to somebody that understands the mental health and prioritizing that. Like that has been an important piece for me in being able to stay strong in moments that, you know, I feel like obstacles are trying to take me down, and just understanding that the obstacles that, you know, are in my path are not there to obstruct me, but they are my path. And, you know, having someone, you know, there just to accompany you and heal and help you to, you know, just bring yourself to a better place mentally is really, really important for me.
Do you have any practical advice for the student athletes that are watching this session today and have athletic aspirations, sorry?
Yeah, I would say two things. Structure and sacrifice. Structure is so important. You know, athletics can open up so many doors for you, but you need your academics as well. And I think just implementing the both of them creates structure. You know, we can see that, you know, in the pandemic, when everybody didn't have structure anymore, we were all going crazy. You know, we didn't know what to do because we need that structure. And I think structure creates balance, and that helps you. You know, for me, while I was doing my athletics, even though I was pursuing the Olympics, I was still in school, and I was in school, you know, for 7 years, for longer than, you know, I thought I would, but that structure helped me. Besides the 1 year, you know, in 2016, where, you know, I decided to take that year off. And it was the most like foolish decision I could have ever made, because in that time I thought I was like, okay, I'm going to accomplish all these things. I'm going to have all this time to, you know, just focus on the Olympics. I'm going to be able to do all these things on the side. I'm going to have all this time. And I didn't complete anything. I didn't do anything. I completely took away that structure and that balance that I needed. And, you know, the busier you are, the more productive you are. So I would say structure is the first and foremost. Keep academics and athletics together, because with both of them, they open way more doors than just one avenue. And sacrifice. I think sacrifice is a really big thing. There was a lot of stuff that I had to say no to in high school, you know, just to make that sacrifice, to prioritize, you know, what I can do to better myself as an athlete and a student. So it didn't feel fun. You know, I felt like I was missing out on all the fun, but I promise you, it gets more fun. Like it gets way fun. Like once you leave high school and doors are opening and you know, you have all these avenues, it gets really, really fun. So structure and sacrifice will take you a long way.
And honestly, that advice goes even further to those that are athletes, but anybody that has a passion. Thank you very much for that.
What's one piece of advice that you have for students listening to this session today?
I would just say be centered in yourself. And I think high school is that time when you're trying to figure out who you are. Take that time to figure out who you are. It's going to happen. And when you find out who you are, like stick to that person. You don't have to change for anybody, because we need people to be their authentic and their unique selves. And I think deviating from that and conforming it's no fun, because you're betraying yourself at the core. So I would just say, just stay true to who you are, be yourself, and like find your people. I remember when I was in high school, they used to say these are the best 4 years of your life. They're not. Life gets actually better. So if high school is great for you, it's gonna get better. If it's not that great for you, it's gonna get better. High school is like, it's a starting block for like your adult life, but like life gets way better after high school. So if you're not having a great time, hold on, because I promise you there's more to life. If you're having a great time, like it's gonna keep climbing and it's gonna get better. So
I think we're gonna ask just one last question. Could you share with us one thing you are currently listening to, watching, or even reading?
Want me to go first?
Yeah.
So I actually did a book club over the past, like during the pandemic. So I've been reading a lot. So I'm currently reading Patsy by, I think it's by Nicole Dennis Brown. Really, really good. I recently also read Frying Plantain, which is awesome, really awesome as well. Another good book I read was My Sister is Serial Killer. Great book. So we did like all Black authors, Black stories. I'm happy to share my list with you guys.
Yes.
Really, some really great reads. And there were like some fun reads. We read a lot about like Black pain. We didn't want to, like my club, we were like, we don't want to read about Black pain. Let's see some joy. So it's really about like some Black joy and upliftment. So that's what I've been reading. Listening to, like, I love my oldies. I have a record player. So I've been just stirring it back, like way back to like early like 70s, 60s. I got a little bit of Diana Ross on right now. I probably have James Brown on the record player right now. So I'm just living my best life in quarantine, pretty much.
Yeah, my stuff is not as specific as Cassandra, but I think right now I'm in a space of my life where I'm just all about self-growth. And, you know, a lot of the things that I've been listening to on YouTube have been inspirational, motivational things. And I really started dabbling into journaling and writing. And I feel like there was so much healing and writing and just reflection. I think the pandemic made a lot of time for reflection for me. And you know, and then here and there, you know, I'm on Netflix binge watching, you know, Making a Murderer and Evil Genius and you know, things that I'm like, wow, this is, you know, just trying to understand the psyches of other people. Yeah, so it's all over the place. It's not really consistent. It's all over the place. You know, sometimes you just need a balance like that. So
I think most of us have been going through that in this quarantine. But thank you very much. And due to the time, and so we, on behalf of the Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board and all of those in attendance today, we would like to thank you for sharing your lived experiences with us. You definitely have inspired us today and given us hope.